Welcome to Prime Time. In today's video tutorial, we're going to show you how to create a category in Genesis. The first step, we're going to click on Configure and then down to Categories. As you can see, categories here are things like holiday, jury duty, lunch, anything you really want, and they can be paid and unpaid. They can be set for an hourly amount. In other words, X amount of hours, or they can be set for a dollar amount. Some of the things you might do for unpaid might be doctor's appointment, anything like that where you'd want to track time that was unpaid but still keep track of it. Same with the paid time. You can add whatever you need in that you're paying the employees, be it hourly amount or a dollar amount. If we look at some of these, absent here, I'm going to click Edit. We can see right here that it overrides absence, but it's not paid. We're able to export this category if we wanted to into our payroll, and we would need a code up here for that. So even though someone's marked this for export, they do not have a code in here that meets up with their payroll, so it would not go across. It's just unusual. That would be marked for an unpaid. So adding a new category, we want to determine whether it's an hours category or a dollar amount category. And if it's an hours, you can easily look on any of the other ones in here and see how they are designed. Something like tips would be a dollar amount. Not really need any of this. But we want to add our own. So again, configure and then categories. This brings us here, and we're just going to click the add button. We need a code, so we're going to add in a code. It could be anything you want, but this is what's going to come up on this side that you're used to seeing when you put this transaction into someone's time card. So something that's easy for you. This does not go across to payroll. It's simply for your use. The description can be a little bit broader than the code so you understand what it is. And again, that's not something that goes across to payroll. That's simply for your use. We want it to be active in order to use it. And if we're paying this, we really do want to export the category. This is going to be for hours applied to an employee in their time card. We do want it to override an absent. Miscellaneous entry overrides holiday minimum hours. If you're set up in your holiday that they have to work X amount of hours the day before the holiday and X amount of hours after the holiday, this would override that. Some categories may override it, some may not. If you don't utilize that for your holiday, then it doesn't really matter. Are miscellaneous entries paid? Yes, this is going to be paid. Can this category be overtime? And there's another one down here. Does it accrue towards overtime? There is a difference, although it's just a trade-off more than anything. If I say yes, it can accrue towards overtime, but I do not select that it can be overtime, then it will adjust the time card. So if I've got 40 hours on the time card, but 8 of those hours happen to be the FMLA, it will insert the 8 hours. It will use the 8 hours of FMLA to count towards the overtime, but it will adjust the user's time card so that their worked hours ends up showing as overtime hours and not the FMLA itself. So up to you on how you want to use that, or if you want to use that. Deducts from, if this was a category that we wanted to deduct from personal day, or any of these that we have in our system, we could, so that if we give somebody X amount of hours on this particular category, it would deduct from whatever we put here in their benefits. And we could choose at a factor of 0.75, 1.5, whatever we wanted to do. Not many people utilize this, although you could put something like birthday category, give it to them and say, yeah, the birthday, we're going to deduct it from their personal day. They get the day off, but when it goes to payroll or into our benefits, we want those hours to come out of here. We could still export as, say, B for birthday, as long as our payroll company knows that B is for their birthday. The payroll could then deduct that from their personal hours if they wanted to as well. Post to benefit entitlement. If we wanted to make this a benefit entitlement, same as personal, vacation, or something like that, we could do that by selecting this box. Usually though, for a regular category similar to this or anything like that, these are the main ones we're going to put in. And if this does go to payroll, you'll notice we wish to export it, and we would need to put in the code. So it might be something like F3, F1, F7, or whatever our payroll earnings code is what we would place here. Now, if we've got a code here and we wish to export it, it will go out. If we don't have a code here, it can still export this category, but likely on your payroll export, it's not going to have an earnings code, which will cause your export to error out when you're running it through payroll. So be aware of that on whether you need it to export or not. So we put in our export code. And the reason I'm only putting one in here is this is no differential, and this is under regular hours. Now, if you anticipate this category being overtime or being able to come out as overtime, you may want to differentiate this from regular overtime hours and place in a code from your payroll system that can show these overtime hours for this category so it's properly accounted for in your general ledger. Same with OT2, which is just basically double time. If you're using OT3, it would be triple time basically, or there could be another way you utilize the OT3 for that's not connected to overtime. That would be a deeper, more in-depth subject to get through to set something up like that. The D1 through D9, these are differentials. So if you do have individuals that do receive differential pay, this might be something like F7, 7OT, and I'm just putting something in here. It could be whatever your payroll company wants placed in here for this type. So with an F7 on a D1, I can anticipate an employee that works maybe the afternoon shift that makes 50 cents more per hour. And when we export those hours as F7 into payroll, the payroll knows, oh, these hours are multiplied by 0.50 because they're on a differential. Same with the overtime. And that's what all of these things are for down here. The field code is used in different payroll exports, such as ADP, to identify a particular identifier, to put them in a separate column, and they would have different things that go in here for those. For most payroll exports, we don't use the field code. Once you've got everything complete, you click OK. It's going to be inserted in the system. You could then click Add and do another category in here, paid or unpaid. Your dollar amount, let's see, we've got cash tips. Let's do a banquet. Banquet tip. We do want to export it. We want this to be a dollar amount. I don't need to change anything down here because it's assumed we're simply going to add X amount of dollars to the transaction. That may go across as BT for banquet tips. We do want to export it. We click OK. So once we have our custom categories in, here's where we're going to go to apply them to the employees in case you don't know. So in our employee screen, we're going to open this up. We've got our employee. Now we could do add transaction. From the function, select miscellaneous. And these are our miscellaneous categories. And we could see the FMLA one that I added. It's asking for the number of hours and minutes. If this was, 7 hours and 15 minutes, then I would simply use 715. We note the hundredths calculation is over here at 7.25. So they want this at exactly hours and minutes, not hours and hundredths. We could also choose to subtract X amount from the employee as well if we needed to. If we decided that we did want this one to accrue towards overtime, we have the option of saying that at this time. If we wanted this to be a specific differential for this employee, we could do that as well, because this transaction just has a date and a start time. It doesn't really have a start time and a finish time for the system to go through and look and see whether this qualified for differential or anything like that. So we would make these selections at the time we're adding this. You could also apply it to a specific department and job if you had that in the system. And you would choose the date and the time. The time just needs to be a time where they do not have anything else in their time card that is at this specific hours, minutes, and seconds. So this would be fine. I just go ahead and click OK. And that has added this in for me on the 13th, 7.25 hours. If I use the multiple miscellaneous, this is something that I prefer more than the add transaction. I select multiple miscellaneous. I can choose what it was, choose the date. Again, hours and minutes. I can verify this in the hundredths calculation if I'm trying to match up work hours that are already in here to make this and the work hours equal 8 exactly. I can choose again, accrue to overtime, anything else like that, the job costing. I've selected this, or I can do multiple days for this and just click OK. And there they've added these in. And it's 6.62, which is the calculation with rounding based on the amount of time that we put in there. And we can see the totals start to go and the grand totals over here for the pay period. So I hope this helps you on your categories and the understanding and adding new categories. If you need assistance, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you for watching.